Hey, what's going on, everybody? My name is Corey, better known as the Seaman, and I want to welcome you to a very special edition of the Seaman Cinema Sit Down. That's right, folks, we're back in the comic book corner. Now, I have to apologize because technically we're a little out of order. Had a really long day today, got a little behind on the posting of this one, or getting to it because it's just a really long day. So technically it's 12:30 in the morning, so we are 14 days out. But this video should have been for 15 days out from Avengers Infinity War as we continue on our countdown. This would now be the fourth movie that we're coming up on. So you know the drill. Pull up a chair, take a seat. Today I am discussing The Incredible Hulk. That's right, technically the second movie to come out in the cinematic universe, but in chronological order, it is our fourth film that we're looking at. And again, putting it in this order is just kind of starting to build something differently than what we got, and it's cool. And the thing with this Hulk movie, and we'll kind of talk about this in more depth though, is when it came out, man, this movie was awesome. Like, such a great follow-up to Iron Man. Even though it might not have been as fun or funny or as light, as was a little bit heavier. I mean, just great action. Coming off Ang Lee's Hulk, you really, really loved this Hulk, but now we've been spoiled. So it's interesting to go back and rewatch this film because even I will talk about The Incredible Hulk back toward the back end of the movies as you're kind of like going through your own personal rankings. Because I've forgotten, because I've fallen so in love with Mark Ruffalo. Sometimes Ed Norton gets misplaced, and he shouldn't have, because he really does a great job, and I really enjoyed this movie, especially watching it all these years later. This one dropped in 2008, right after Iron Man. But before we go and brag about what's great about it, you know me, I like to start with the bad, end with the good, so you have a good taste in your mouth at the end of this. And there's a couple bad things, and like I said, some of it kind of plays into the fact that the movie doesn't age real well. Ruffalo has done such a great job with the Hulk now, and Marvel has done such a better job in developing the Hulk into something that feels so true to character. There's just things that kind of play off of it not so great. It's more of spy games type stuff in the beginning of this film before we get to Hulk stuff, which doesn't quite feel like Bruce Banner. But Norton's so good at it, and it's why it works so well in the movie. And Norton does a great job, don't get me wrong. Just he feels a little different. He doesn't quite have the scientist feeling. He's not quite as timid and shy and kind of like, I want to hide from everything, the way Ruffalo and even Eric Bana did it. Because, Norton's just got that kind of confident, arrogant swagger to him. And that just kind of always comes out. And I don't really think that's so much Banner. But like I said, what they asked Norton to do in the film just works really well, which is why he's good in what he's given. And the other thing that, too, is a negative, and this goes with the aging of the movie, because at the time I remember going, oh, man, he looks so great. But there's almost no Norton in his face. The way they've put Ruffalo's face into the Hulk and just gets better every time he's on screen, it really hurts this movie because you don't see Norton that much. There's a scene toward the end of the movie where he's talking to his doctor friend, Mr. Blue, and they do this kind of test to try to get the Hulk to come out and figure out how they can suppress it. And the transformation, you finally get to see the whole transformation. You've gotten glimpses of it the whole movie, but now you see this full transformation happen, and you have to kind of make a cut to a different part of the body because his face doesn't quite change the way the rest of his body does because you lose Ed. And that's kind of disappointing. And much more noticeable now, as I said, because it just hasn't aged as well. The other thing, too, that kind of hurts this movie because they did such a good job with it in Cap and in Iron Man, both movies, there's not a ton of humor in this one. Like I said, it's a more serious approach. You do have fun in the finale and even in the middle action sequences. There's great moments throughout the whole thing. But it's just not quite there when it comes to what we've gotten with Cap and Tony. That being said, Louis Leterrier, who directed, did tons of great stuff in this movie. And it starts off right off the gate, like we keep referencing the world building. World building is so important in these early films as we approached Avengers. And obviously this was the second film in reality, so it was important to kind of start dropping some more hints that the world is growing. But now getting in the fourth spot, those little hints are just kind of even better exclamation points, if you will. You have, in the first the opening sequence. One of the things I love about this movie is the opening sequence. It's one of those things that when Marvel redid Spider-Man, I wasn't worried about how they were going to handle the origin stuff, because we'd seen Uncle Ben's story so many times already. It started here, right? We had just come off Ang Lee's not too long prior, and what they do is in the opening sequence with all the credits, they kind of do this flashback, dreamlike kind of sequence that everything's kind of blurry and you're going in and out almost like a memory. And you see, Banner get in the seat, Banner turn into Hulk, Banner destroy a bunch of stuff, the army chases Banner. They basically tell the Ang Lee story with all the actors that are in this movie in like a 90-second credit open. And they play it into like, boom, like here's Norton right at the end of that, coming out of like a meditation session where he was starting to get, his heart was going, he had to bring it down. So it plays out really well, but it addresses the whole origin in 2 minutes, and boom, now we can go run and have fun. But in that sequence, there's some world building stuff. We get mentions of Stark Industries and of Nick Fury, and we just continue to see the world grow. Then Tim Roth plays Emil Blonsky, who's a soldier that General Thunderbolt Ross, not Colonel General, played by William Hurt, uses kind of as a super soldier. They give him this serum to kind of be able to hang with Hulk a little bit, increase his speed and his awareness and his strength. But it's not Hulk serum, and it's bright blue, man. Looks just like Cap serum. Kind of a nod to Cap, even though it's not the same serum, because all of that was destroyed in Captain America. So all these nice little world-building things are great. This I have to throw in there, because every time I see the movie, I love it. Norton's Banner is really working on trying to keep his blood pressure and his heart rate down, and breathing helps in that. And the dude who's training him does some crazy stuff with his abdomen. I've never seen an abdomen move like that, and it's just impressive and deserves to be mentioned because it's amazing to watch. Norton tries and doesn't even come close. The other thing I love about this movie too is the creators really were having some fun. Leterrier has fun with the material that he's got when he's doing Hulk stuff. There's a sequence at the school. The second time Hulk shows up, he kind of rips apart armored car and uses it as a shield against like the sonic blasters, and then digs it into the ground to pull himself forward, and then he throws them and destroys them. Just a really creative way to use stuff around Hulk's environment that he can use to his advantage. They do it again in the finale when he's fighting Abomination. He rips a police car in half and uses each end as a boxing glove. It's so cool, man. Just tons of moments like that make you smile, where you can just tell that Leterrier and the cast and everybody was having fun doing what they're doing. I mean, even when he's fighting Abomination and they're clinging onto the helicopter, he uses Abomination's spine spikes to climb up him, and then uses an elbow spike to stab him. Just really creative stuff, and it makes you smile and you love watching it. That, of course, plays right into all the action. The action sequences in this movie are great. You get an opening first action sequence, after there's, Banner kind of cuts his finger at his job. He's hiding out in South America, I believe, somewhere, and his blood falls, and it's a plant that makes soda. Runs down, finds everything's okay, except some blood got into one. That ships out. Person gets infected with gamma radiation from Banner's blood, dies. That's how William Hurt's General Ross and co are able to find where he is, and that leads to a great chase sequence. Now, the guy who dies, we're going to come back to later, right? You're going to be like, why aren't you saying his name? I haven't mentioned him yet, because we're saving him all the way at the end, right before Avengers Infinity War. We're going to talk about all of the sequences in each movie, because he deserves his own video. That being said, the opening chase sequence is great, man. You're going across rooftops through this little kind of town, with all these quick turns and back alleys, and it's just choreographed really well. So much fun to watch Norton just sprinting through and trying not to lose control. That, of course, then leads into him losing that control because of a guy who he bumped into because of the way he was talking to a girl. Bumps into him again. He gets mad. Brings out the Hulk, and that sequence is beautiful, man. It's kind of like a horror sequence. He's in the shadows. You see eyes. You see shadowy, large body parts. You see people fly. You see crates move, but you never really see the Hulk. and it just works so well, man. It's such a great first sequence, and it really sets a tone for the Hulk himself that's more ferocious and violent and very aggressive, almost like he's out of control, which plays brilliantly by the time you get to the end of the movie, and more of Banner's humanity is starting to get across and come through to the Hulk, where Hulk can finally speak words, right? Blonsky's Abomination can speak right from the get-go. The Hulk cannot, and the Hulk finally does say, "Hulk smash!" Or, yeah, he does a Hulk smash, and it's great. But, there's very few things that you can say until the end of the movie. So that's kind of like one of those cool growth sequences with Hulk that they do really well, and it plays out throughout the movie. As I mentioned, the park scene at the school, it's such a great intro because we don't really see him turn into the Hulk the first time. Now we get to see parts of it. We see his feet, his pants start to rip, his hand on the glass because they throw smoke bombs in. It's a cool way to intro him, and then that whole sequence is great, man. I mean, Tim Roth, so believable in that sequence where he's sprinting full speed and just moving so much faster than everybody, and everybody else looks like they're running full speed. Just great stuff with him and the Hulk. The way he moves and stuff is just awesome. That whole sequence is great. The finale is wonderful. You get like a solid 10, maybe 15 minutes of just Hulk abomination destruction action, and it plays like a destruction monster movie. It's awesome. Just nonstop, big swinging hits, man. I love that it pushes Hulk right to the brink. And just tons of intensity in that last fight, and it's a perfect amount to end a Hulk movie. So yeah, man, I mean, I love everything that they were doing inside the movie. On top of that, this cast is pretty strong. Like I said, Ed Norton, he gets forgotten because of how great Ruffalo is. Ed Norton was great in this movie, man. I mean, Ed Norton knocks the roll out of the park. Like I said, it might not have felt quite like Banner, but that's not Norton's doing, outside of, just the fact that he kind of oozes confidence all the time. But what he's given, man, he plays the spy game stuff so well. I love his interactions with Liv Tyler and with William Hurt's General Ross and Tim Roth's Blonsky. Even though they're not directly kind of having interactions, the sequences when any of those guys are on screen, they all work really well. And, Norton's just such a great actor. He does a really good Banner. He just performs he delivers the material really, really well. He's very easy to enjoy in this. Obviously, you connect that to the fact that he's also the Hulk, but it's not quite Norton. Obviously, he's a CGI character. And, it was such a drastic improvement from the Ang Lee version that you could not love this version of the Hulk, even though now we have found a better version. At the time, you had to love this one, and I still respect it. He looks great. There's sequences, man, where he looks so real. And for the time, it was some of the best CGI we'd seen. Even now, the CGI still holds. Even though it's not quite as good as what we're at, it works quite well. And I mentioned earlier, I just love this vision of him. He's more scary. He's more violent. And that plays so well in the growth of what they've been able to do with Hulk and the limited amount of use they have with him since. Obviously, Hulk is owned by Universal, and when this movie came out, Marvel was just a studio house, so Universal had no problem with the movie being made. Once Disney acquired Marvel, well, then Universal was like, well, we're not going to give him up so easily. He's able to work in the team movies, which is why Ragnarok, Infinity War, and Avengers 4 hopefully are going to give us a really cool Hulk arc. At least that's what Kevin Feige has said. Because we haven't been able to get him back into the picture. And that's one of the other things that hurts this movie I forgot to mention. They set up a bunch of Hulk stuff. Dr. Blue, or Mr. Blue, ends up getting some Hulk blood and a cut in his head. And his head starts to grow. It's a tip to the leader. We never get to bring him back because we don't get a Hulk movie. Abomination is still in the world. He's not dead. You don't get to bring him back. But that being said, like I said, how they work the Hulk in this movie is really awesome. I love the growth. And you start to see that Banner humanity start to peek through a little bit. And then, like I said, Tim Roth is fantastic. He plays Emil Blonsky, who's a soldier. And, he's established as a bad guy right away, man. He comes into to Banner's apartment down in South America. There's a dog, shoots the dog right away, no hesitation. You're just like, okay, this is a bad guy. And I like when you can establish that right away with a guy. Like I said, that sequence in the park is probably one of Blonsky's best sequences action-wise, and it comes right off of a really great scene that he has with William Hurt when he's like, you need to tell me what this thing is, because that was no human. Like Banner had help, and, Hurt's like, it was Banner. That leads right into this action sequence that he has in the park, and like I said, the way he moves, he has this flip move where Hulk's like using those car pieces and he misses them. Just all of it's so cool, man. I really enjoyed Blonsky throughout the film. But again, it's one of these things where you develop one villain the first two acts, and the third act you get a completely different villain. Now it's the same person, but now he's Abomination. But I love the look of him. He just has a cool look, and then after he gets the serum, he starts getting sick, and the makeup work is fantastic. You think he's dying because he should have died. He gets his entire bone structure destroyed by the Hulk. And I just love the way that he looks in the movie. And he creates a good villain for Banner to try to figure out. Banner's got to kind of account for where Blonsky is on multiple occasions. Because obviously Hulk, the one time he fights Blonsky head on, shatters his bones and almost into dust. But I really enjoyed Tim Roth. Tim Roth's really strong in the movie. Love Tim Roth in general. And you're not lacking from him here. His Abomination is kind of generic. Like I said, he's a third act villain by the time he becomes Abomination. So he's very straightforward. But I love his entrance. Again, they go back to that kind of horror monster element that they did for Hulk. Same with him. You're just seeing people flying. You're seeing bits and pieces of him. You're seeing like a foot or an arm. You're seeing cars and stuff fly. And that's one of the other things, man. The practical use of actual practical, not animations, but like special effects. The practical special effects are great, man. The way cars blow up and things move and things get destroyed, you really think that these guys are hitting this stuff. And they do such a great job with all that, and it really shines, especially in Abomination's entrance when he's just flinging cars and things are exploding. And he gives a good matchup for Hulk. It's a big, Hulk is about smashing, and it's a big smash fest, man. Lots of big throws. He looks really, really good too. I think they did a good job of reimagining how he looks and kind of holding true to the comics and whatnot. But generic as he is, he does set up great action, and it works really well. William Hurt, fantastic. He really plays Colonel Ross quite well, or General Ross. I keep calling him Colonel. He's General right now. General Ross, really solid. He was just built to play that kind of military guy. Liv Tyler's okay as Betty. Nothing too special. She's not a shining spot in the movie. She's good enough though. She gives someone a solid actress to bounce off of Ed Norton. And she's solid, but she has one of the most memorable moments in the movie with Hulk. It's one of my favorite moments because it's a real comic moment. Basically, after the fight at the school in the park, in protecting her, she ends up getting hurt really bad, and Hulk kind of runs off with her, takes her to this cave in the rain where he kind of has this sweet, softer kind of scene with her, and that's right out of the comics. When Jeff Loeb reimagined the origin of Hulk, Betty was afraid of him, and he kidnaps her and takes her to a cave while it's raining to try to show her that he's not evil. And Leterrier does a great job of taking something directly out of the comics and adapting it to make it work in his movie. It hits that same thing. It shows a little bit of a softer side of Hulk, and gives us some humor as like thunder and lightning kind of scare him. He bumps his head, and then he goes back to being Hulk, and he screams. But no, it's just such a great way to reimagine a classic comic moment that comic fans identify with. And there's lots of little comic things dropped throughout the whole movie, man. Lou Ferrigno pops up as a security guard, which is awesome. They make a couple references to his version of the Hulk, including music. There's just lots of great little Hulk things sprinkled throughout the whole film. I mentioned the leader. But all of that kind of, the big one is this moment with Betty, and it's reimagined in a way that allows you to see that softer side of Hulk for a minute, and just plays so well. And Liv Tyler's great in that scene. Like I said, she plays off Ed Norton real well. So again, another real solid acting performance across the board, a real solid cast, and a very, very, very enjoyable movie. Like I said, you can't deny that Ruffalo's better. That version of the Hulk has just captured all of our imagination in a way that we really identify with. But Ed Norton, man, second movie in the universe, it had to be successful if they were going to keep going, and it was. It was wildly popular. Tons of people loved it on first because we were coming off of something not so great. And like I said, now it kind of gets lost. And you got to remember, this was one of the staple movies that set the foundation to kind of spur us on to what eventually is where we are now 10 years later. A lot of that has to do with the Hulk. Wonderful movie. I think Leterrier, Ed Norton, Tim Roth, the whole group just did a really good job. Most of the problems that people I think have with the movie now just have to do with the fact that it hasn't aged well. It doesn't mean that it's not a good addition to the Marvel Universe and not a solid movie. And that brings us to the end of our fourth Marvel film. We will be back a little bit later on with the next installment, the fifth film in the franchises. We approach the 2-week mark till Avengers Infinity War. So that's all the Seaman's got to say. That means it's your turn. Hit those comments. Tell me what you thought of The Incredible Hulk. Do you remember what you thought when you saw it? How do you feel about it since then? And have you watched it recently? And do you feel differently? If you haven't seen the movie, I just gave you a whole lot of stuff that gave the movie away. Because we're in spoiler town, man. 2008 was 10 years ago. But let me know what you want to go watch it. Did I entice you to want to see it, even though I've told you everything you need to know? Hit those comments. Let me know what you're thinking. I always love to hear from you guys. If you like the video, please hit the thumbs up. And if you're new here, please hit the subscribe button and the little bell so you get an alert every time I make a new video, including every time I drop a new Seaman Avengers Infinity War countdown video. For the Seaman Cinema Sit Down, I'm the Seaman. I am signing off. Peace!